over the last 40 years of liberalization, we have seen corporate governance failures in every sector, from steel to software. So I don't think we should single out these worst startups for that. But I think there is no question that if they are going to really build long-term companies, sustainable, transformational, profitable, they will have to up the game in terms of corporate governance. And one of the things I worry about is that, when you get too much money from, funders at a young age, I think it has a distortionary impact on their behavior. I've seen this time and again. And I think they should now perhaps get back to some more humility and focus on really building long-term sustainable businesses.
Look, there are 40,000 startups out there. A few have been called out for their conduct and behavior. I do believe and I hope that the vast majority of them are not like that. And hopefully we'll be all right. But yes, I accept Nandan's point. When companies get too much money too soon, they tend to spend it suboptimally. They perhaps, when investors are giving money on GMV, they'll chase GMV rather than unit economics. So I think with the tightening of liquidity, with the Fed raising rates next couple of years, some of that fund availability will be constrained. I think we'll be all right.
I mean, I tend to echo what Sanjeev said. I think it's important not to sort of broad brush a whole group of companies with good and bad corporate governance. I just think organizations have to think with humility about how the race is long, and right, you can have a few good years and few bad years. So building institutions that can survive time takes a lot of structured thinking, and governance, I think, is a core component of that if you want to build an organization for the long run. So keeping that front and center, I think, is important.
Issue in the industry as one of things that are more characteristic of that company rather than an industry-wide phenomenon. I think painting the entire startup industry with the broad brush of poor corporate governance would be wrong, because I think there is a lot of creative energy in the startup ecosystem, and a whole bunch of investors who have invested in that cannot be, it cannot be seen as something that is, they're chasing something worthless. Having said that, it's not that we endorse that. Like, Nykaa's raised hardly any capital so far, and we haven't raised it from the big names also. And I think we took money from domestic high net worth individuals, and we saw that with even Freshworks. So there could be many, and also with Zerodha. So there could be many models, and just to leverage on a high growth industry, one doesn't have to do things that one talks about. So I don't know. I think corporate governance to me is more of an individual choice companies tend to make, rather than an industry-wide phenomenon.
I would share the view that you can't cover the whole sector with the same brush. But I have a slightly different perspective on the lack of mentorship which the startup world actually faces. So if you look at sort of underlying causes for some of the recent incidents that we've been seeing, it comes down to a lack of mentorship to the sort of entrepreneurs. So, building on Nandan's point that a lot of young people come into disproportionate amount of money very quickly. So who's going to keep the ship steady? And I think, for want of a better word, without sort of sounding extreme, a little bit of adult supervision. I think in terms of how they learn to cope with the changing world, with new wealth, and also the fast pace at which a lot of these opportunities are arising. So I think that is what I think is the solution. I don't think regulation is the solution, because the regulation always has a different way of turning out. And once something goes wrong, then the system comes at you with a very heavy hand. But by that time, it's too late. I think your reputation is gone. I think people underestimate, particularly young startups, underestimate the value of reputation at the early stage, both in terms of how investors will perceive you, the larger ecosystem will perceive you, and even capital providers will perceive you. The reputation is an intangible, and I think the young startups need to understand that. And it's not as if this is the only problem in India. We've heard about the same problems in a number of iconic startups in the Silicon Valley as well, where they just completely went downhill on governance as well.